There are bad rounds. And then there are the kind of rounds that make even the best player in the world look suddenly human. Rory McIlroy walked into this PGA Championship with all the noise that follows greatness. Expectations, pressure, history, and that familiar feeling that maybe this was the week he would remind everyone exactly who he is. But then something cracked. The driver that usually looks like a weapon started looking like a warning sign. The rhythm vanished. The fairways disappeared. And by the time he reached the closing stretch, the frustration on his face said more than any scorecard ever could. What happened next wasn't just about golf. It was about pride, control, and the thin line between a champion staying composed and finally letting the emotion spill out. Because after a finish that felt like a disaster, Rory gave a reaction that stunned people. And just when it looked like the week might be slipping away, he came back with the kind of response only a true star can produce. If you truly love golf, if this game means something to you, and if you enjoy stories about what champions do when things go wrong, then subscribe and become part of this golf family. Because golf is not just about trophies. It's about resilience, pressure, heartbreak, and those moments that keep us coming back. Coming into the week, Rory looked like the kind of player nobody wanted to chase. When McIlroy is driving it well, the whole golf course starts to feel smaller. That's what makes this story so gripping. The one area of his game that usually gives him freedom was the exact thing that started trapping him. And for golf fans, that is instantly fascinating, because we all know what it means when your strength suddenly becomes your question mark. You can see it before the numbers even tell you. The swing gets a little quicker. The body language changes. The walk between shots gets quieter. A player can look calm on the outside, but you know the storm is already building. But here's the part nobody talks about enough. Sometimes a round doesn't fall apart all at once. Sometimes it erodes slowly, one uncomfortable swing at a time. That's what made this so painful to watch. Rory didn't start with total chaos. He kept trying to hold it together. He made a birdie early to erase an opening bogey. He stacked up a run of pars. For a while, it looked manageable. Not sharp, maybe, but manageable. And that's what tricks you as a viewer. You start thinking, okay, maybe this won't be pretty, but he can survive it. Then the course started asking harder questions. The misses off the tee weren't just misses. They were the kind that wrecked the next decision too. Wrong side of the fairway. Thick stuff. Awkward angle. No freedom. No full commitment. Suddenly Rory wasn't attacking holes. He was negotiating with them. And when that happens at a major, the score never tells the full story. The real damage is emotional. Every recovery shot takes something out of you. Every par save feels like survival instead of momentum. And for a player who prides himself on looking powerful and in control, that kind of golf feels suffocating. And this is where everything changed. The final stretch turned frustration into a full-blown gut punch. 4 straight bogeys to finish. Not one mistake. Not one bad bounce. 4 in a row. The kind of finish that makes a round feel twice as heavy. You could almost feel the air leaving the day. Fans watching saw the same thing Rory saw. This wasn't just a score slipping. This was confidence taking a direct hit. The 6th hurts. The 7th hurts more. The 8th keeps the wound open. And then the 9th closes the door with a thud. That's the kind of closing stretch that sends players straight to the range, straight to silence, or straight into their own thoughts. And then came the moment that made the whole thing feel bigger than one round. Rory was asked to describe it, and he basically summed it up in one brutal word. No polished spin, no fake positivity, no hiding behind cliches, just raw honesty. That's why it landed. Because every golfer, from weekend player to major champion, understood it instantly. Sometimes the game strips you down so completely that all you have left is the truth. Wait till you hear what happened next, because this is where Rory stopped being a story about collapse and started becoming a story about response. Great players do not always avoid frustration. What separates them is what they do with it. They don't erase the anger. They repurpose it. They wake up the next day and try to turn emotion into clarity. That is much harder than it sounds, especially when the whole golf world is watching, especially when your swing is under a microscope, and especially when you know one more poor stretch could send you home early. So Friday arrives, and everything feels different. Not easier, just sharper, more focused, more disciplined. The version of Rory that showed up in round 2 looked like a player who had stopped trying to force the perfect answer and started trusting the simple one. Fairways mattered. Patience mattered. Accepting the day mattered. He birdied 2 of his first 4 holes, and suddenly the energy changed. Not because he had already fixed everything, but because he was competing again. That's a huge difference. Golf fans know it when they see it. There's a version of a player surviving, and there's a version believing. But here's the part that makes this comeback so interesting. It wasn't some wild, impossible highlight reel charge from everywhere on the golf course. It was controlled, bogey-free, mature. That matters. Because after a day where the round felt emotionally messy, Rory answered with something clean. He didn't need fireworks. He needed order. He needed a round that told him, and everyone else, that the tournament wasn't gone. Shot by shot, he rebuilt that feeling. And that might be more impressive than going crazy with 8 birdies, because restraint is hard when you're wounded. And this is where golf becomes deeply personal for fans. Because whether you're a scratch player or someone trying to break 90, you've lived this in your own way. You've had the day where your best club abandoned you. You've had the hole where 1 bad swing became 3 bad decisions. You've walked to the next tee pretending you were fine when you absolutely were not. That's why Rory's fight back matters. Not because it was perfect, not because it guaranteed a trophy, but because it showed what this game asks from you after embarrassment. Golf doesn't just test your talent. It tests your willingness to show up again after the game makes you look foolish. And suddenly, after looking dead in the water, Rory was back within reach. Back in the mix. Back in the conversation. That's the magic of championships like this. One day you look buried. The next day you look dangerous. And when the field is tight, belief becomes fuel. Rory himself made it clear. The goal was simply get back in it. And he did. But here's the part nobody should miss. Even in the middle of the rebound, there was still edge in him. Still honesty. Still tension. He spoke about the setup. He spoke his mind. Some people love that. Some people don't. But what it tells you is simple. He was emotionally invested again. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't detached. He cared enough to be bothered. And sometimes that fire is exactly what makes a comeback feel real. Not clean. Real. That's why this story is bigger than one scorecard. Rory McIlroy did not give us the boring version of elite golf. He gave us the human version. The version where a superstar looks uncomfortable, angry, vulnerable, then stubborn enough to fight his way back into relevance. And honestly, that's why fans stay attached to players like him. Perfection is impressive. Recovery is relatable. Anybody can admire a smooth round. But when a champion gets punched in the mouth by a golf course and still walks back out swinging the next day, that means something. This is why stories like this matter. Because golf is not just about who lifts the trophy in the end. It's about what the game reveals in the middle of the struggle. Rory's bad round reminded us how quickly confidence can disappear. His response reminded us that class, belief, and grit can bring you right back to the edge of something meaningful. Not every comeback starts with a win. Sometimes it starts with one honest sentence, one calmer swing, one cleaner round, and one decision not to let the week define you too early. So let me ask you this. What tells you more about a player? The round where everything clicks, or the round after everything falls apart? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more golf stories that feel like the game we all love, stay with the channel. Because this sport